All right. Welcome, Julian. All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. Uh, Apologies for the late start. As you see, we had some technical difficulties. But nonetheless, today we'll be discussing technology-enabled education, new paradigms for a smart Barbados. And today we have joining us virtually is Mr. Julian Hall. We have also with us here, physically, Dr. Soda. We have, from the perspective of a student, Mr. Joshua Walcott. And we also have a representative from the Erdison Teachers Training College, Dr. Bradshaw. Thank you all for joining us. So I'll let each of you introduce yourselves in a bit. I just want to, when you're introducing yourselves, maybe you could tell us a bit about why this, how this ties into what you are from a student perspective, educator perspective, and you can, just share with us from your perspectives how you see technology impacting the way we educate and are educated. So I'll start with you, Dr. Bradshaw.
Okay. I was trying to hold all of those questions in my head, but I hope that when I answer all of the questions that you just asked. Now, I think that this session would be a very interesting one to get all of the views of my colleagues here. Because while we don't know exactly what the world will look like in about 20 years, we all know that the world is technologically advancing. It means that we cannot shy away from teaching our students how to use the technology. We cannot shy away from teaching our students to use the technology to learn. Now, teaching students to use the technology is obviously different from teaching them to use the technology to learn. As we know, many of our young people in Barbados have cell phones and they use the social media. They go on Facebook, they go on Twitter, they go on all the other apps. But when it comes now to using the cell phone to get information, some of them, not all, but some of them have difficulty doing that. Or you may find a situation that some students find it difficult to transfer the knowledge that they have in operating this device to operating a computer and using Word, etc. So all of that is to say, at the Erdison Teachers Training College and also the Ministry of Education, we recognize the importance of technology. You would have heard the minister speak about incorporating more technology in our schools.
That's actually a very, very good start, Dr. Bradshaw. Since you spoke about ensuring that the students not just use the technology for using it, but they're putting it for good use. This is a good time for us to hear what Joshua has to say from the student perspective. Could give us his thoughts on those topics.
Good afternoon. My name is Joshua Walcott. I am a student at the University of West Indies. I'm studying law. Well, from a student's perspective, yes, the world is changing and technology is advancing. But however, from my perspective as a student, it hasn't really influenced our education system beyond very basic and courteous, what's the correct word? A very basic implementation. The most you would see is occasionally a teacher posts a YouTube video or maybe just a course. Let's say, for example, like maybe a course might have online resources, barely, depending on how technically savvy the teacher is. But other than that, there's not much influence from technology in our education system here in Barbados, as yet. Maybe the two educators could say what future plans they have, but so far as yet, there's not much influence. And especially when I was in secondary school and doing my first degree, it was more the opposite. We're fighting it instead of embracing it. So I remember when cell phones were mainly becoming a regular item, there was a whole, I remember, y'all would remember there was an overall ban on using cell phones in schools. And instead of us looking at ways to, okay, these are devices that are connected to the internet, you can have almost any piece of information with you anytime, all the time. But instead of embracing this technology, we decided, you know what, we're going to fight it. We're going to go against it instead of sitting down and saying, okay, how can we teach students to properly use the resources that they have in their pockets at all times? How can we use them to properly teach children to properly research, properly apply the knowledge that they gain from the unlimited access to information they have to their work? And instead of that, we decide we're going to fight it and push back. So one major thing is our education system needs to shift from being focused on memorization and regurgitation, which is what most of our exams, especially CXCs, and even at university level focuses on. Because this is the 21st century, you don't need to memorize information. You have all the information in the world in your Okay. You have all the information in the world in your pocket at all times. What you need to focus on is critical thinking and application of this knowledge that we all have to be yourself a better student or a better employee.
And Joshua, I just want to say I wholeheartedly support you in the sense of making sure we embrace the technology, because I myself had concerns with the cell phone ban. During that era, I saw persons hiding cell phones in their bosom. We turned the creativity to another level. Instead of being creative with the technology, we turned persons to try to find ways to use it. So I totally agree with you there. And Dr. Soda, probably you can jump in here. Joshua raised the point of some teachers maybe using the technology and some maybe not. Is that something you see at the university level?
Okay, so afternoon, everybody. So I head the Department of Computer Science, Electronics, Maths, Physics, and absolutely. Let me begin with some good news. Some good news. So we do have. I'll begin with some good news at the school level. Then I'll make my way up back to university and answer your question. So at the school level, we started many years ago giving iPads to teachers who then recorded video lectures for free, solutions to problems, put them on the website. ubtube.com, it's free, it's available, and we covered CSEC maths, and that's done. From that, we wrote a book, and we embedded the videos inside the book. It still did not gain momentum, and I'll come to that, but we did that. At the university level, we have Moodle as our main learning platform. We put in PDFs, we put in videos, we put in pictures, few of us. We have live Zoom lectures. We have all of these things happening. But the greatest challenge at the school level, at the university level, are the teachers and the lecturers themselves, unwilling to take the time to apply the technology that would then help the student a little bit further. This is the greatest challenge. It's no longer the technology. So, for example, what would I love to see happen at the level of the schools? Just imagine if every single school in Barbados, every single teacher was on a single platform, taking video recordings of little concepts that they've understood on an iPad, writing down the explanation, uploading it, embedding Khan Academy videos, YouTube videos, mathtv.com videos, videos from other places within the teaching material right up front, in front of the students. Then the students would have an incentive to see the material. Right now, they only do what the teacher does. And what does the teacher do? The teacher does on a class board the workings out. They hand the same homework they've been handing out for 10 years. The child goes home, does not go to Khan Academy, does not do anything beyond what the teacher has asked them to do. So what I'm trying to emphasize here is that it is not the student at fault. It is not the technology at fault. We really need a mind change and an incentive change at the level of the teachers in high schools and lecturers at university to make it incentive to take that little bit of extra effort to use existing technology to combine the pool of talent of all the schools onto a platform from which we all benefit and which all students benefit. That's the way forward.
Those are some very interesting points, Dr. Soda. It's very interesting, probably something we can come back to, but it's very interesting how we can go about changing something like that. How can we create I think it's more so even so a culture that they would want to to do that, even willingly, even maybe not even through an incentive, but it just creating a culture that would want them to do such a thing. So we have Julian Hall on the line. Julian, you will be hearing the discussion. Do you have any thoughts on what was said so far? We discussed quite a bit.
Yeah, so I think that technology is a natural enabler for education, and I think that it's important that we start earlier, very, very early, in that discussion. And I was with a teacher, a careers teacher, just yesterday, and we were talking about how in the UK, when it comes to STEM subjects, so science, technology, engineering, and maths, and girls going into that career, going into STEM, that it's not working in the UK. So it's still very kind of male orientated, that industry, those industries in the UK. And I asked her why she thought that was, and she said it's because we don't start young enough. We don't start the conversation around careers and around technology and around science and engineering early enough for girls. So by the time they are teenagers, they've already formed in their minds the types of industries and work that they should be going into. And also on the other side, if they can't see individuals in those roles, and there's a thing in the UK, we say if you can't see it, you can't be it. And so I think when it comes to the use of technology, it's not just about using technology to teach, but it's using technology as a driver for careers, and saying to kids that look, we all know that technology is going to be driving our societies. I mean, we're in the middle of a Smart Barbados conference, so that's underpinned by technology. But what does that mean for these students? Are they being given the tools now so that they can contribute to a Smart Barbados of the future? And I guess going back to the gentleman from UE regarding the teachers, I think CPD, so continual professional development, is just a key part of the discussion, and it's extremely important that the teachers are upskilled on a regular basis when it comes to the use of technology. We can't assume that they're going to pick this up. There is going to, they need regular training. But the good news is that all of the big tech companies, be it Google, Facebook, Amazon, they are desperately trying to get into education. I mean, desperately, to the point where Google Suite for schools is free. So if you think about Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Sheets, all of the tools that Google uses for enterprise, they've opened that up to schools for free. And the whole notion of the Google Classroom and all of the Google suite of apps, they've opened it up. And there was a developer in the audience just a couple of days ago who even pointed out that that Google have put online a supercomputer for students to use, for a limited time, albeit, but the technology is available. And I just think that we need to identify what the blockers are, and if the blockers are, or the challenges, if it's the capability of the teachers to use existing technology to then upskill the learning of the young people, then we need to wrap our arms around the teachers and give them the necessary training that they need. But again, the good news is that a lot of the big corporates, again, everyone from the Googles to the Facebook, Amazon, LinkedIn, they all have products for education, and and many of them are actually struggling to get into education.
It's true. And Julian, I actually want to zero in on one of the key points you made earlier about having champions of technology, especially at a young age. Many, I guess you can say, children are like sponges and so on. They sponge off of what they see, what they hear, what they learn. And I think it's really key to have that type of a role model that they can look up to. And that then creates an additional challenge, because if some students actually see their teachers as role models for them, and if the teachers aren't embracing the technology and using the technology properly, we have a serious problem. It's not so you
Yeah,
want.
if I could add to that, exactly. I'm on the same page as you. The students look to the teacher or the lecturer to decide which technology tools they're going to use. Google Suites, you're absolutely right. Our speaker from overseas. We have the technology. It's there. It's available. Google is trying to get into schools. Apple. There's lots and lots of softwares and technologies available for teachers to use to make it exciting. The reality that we have to embrace is that it is easier for a teacher not to use the technology, to get on the board, to do what they've been doing for 10, 15 years and regurgitate the same thing. The child sees the teacher not using the technology. The child goes home, does the homework, hands it in, and life continues. And this is the cycle that we have to break.
Dr. Bradshaw, I think you want to jump in.
Yes, I can't agree that the teachers are not using the technology. As a teacher educator for a number of years, I've been to almost every secondary school in Barbados, and I've been to almost every primary school in Barbados. And I can tell you also about what happens at Urdiston Teachers Training College. Within each of our programs at the college, we have an IT component in which teachers learn to use various technologies. They don't only use technology, but they create technology. Because when you look at Bloom's taxonomical levels, the lowest is remembering and understanding, and the highest is creating. And we always encourage our teachers to utilize the technology within the classroom and allow their students within their classrooms to create as well. Having said that, within our teaching practice instrument, across all programs, be it the Bachelor of Education, be it the Diploma in Education Secondary, the Diploma in Education Primary, I can list all of them. There is part of the rubric in that instrument that speaks to the infusion/incorporation of technology within the classroom. So I can say, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that all teachers who leave Urdiston Teachers Training College with certification have an understanding of how to use technology and how to use technology to be creative within the classroom. Now, the reason that teachers may not, some teachers, not all, because as I said, there are many teachers who use technology in the classroom, and I'll give an example. You would go into a classroom and you would see teachers using videos in the set induction to capture the children's attention. You see it from nursery all the way up to tertiary, using videos, or they might get the students to create something using a video if they're using Scratch. And Scratch is also something that we offer at the training college. We offer workshops, Coding Made Easy. We offer robotics. We do all kinds of things to get these teachers to think so that they can see how they can get their teachers to think also. But one of the major hindrances we have is the lack of infrastructure in some schools. So it isn't that the teachers are not trained or the teachers do not have the skills or the abilities. They generally do. But sometimes, more often than not, it is the infrastructure and the support at the school. As you know, the schools in Barbados, not all of them were built 10 years ago. And as a result, there will be problems with regard to internet connectivity and such like. So you'll find teachers having to download videos and so on at home to embed them in their PowerPoints. And some of the things that they would want to do within the classroom, they're hindered because they do not have that infrastructure. I also want to share, according to the gentleman behind me, Julian. Julian, you're right. The Google Drive, the Google platform, that's free. And we use that also at Urdiston Teachers Training College, right? Students will go on and insert information, add knowledge, share with one another. That's some of the things that we do. So I cannot agree with you, Dr. Soda, when you say that the teachers in Barbados don't want to use technology or, they are trained. They generally know how to use this technology.
So I think, Joshua, you want to...
Yes.
Before you do, let me as well. I'm not disagreeing that there are teachers who are trained in technology and who use it, but it is not. It is basically like a band-aid. Is an overlay on the old system and is not an addition or continuation of something new. So it's just okay. Trying to use technology. Let me just put in a simple video or some pictures in a PowerPoint. Yeah, I call that a day. But at the end of the day, they aren't. It's not a new paradigm. It's just the continuation of the old system, with a little bit of technology sprinkled in here and there, just to either make their life easier because it's a requirement. So instead of beginning at a young age and comprehensively educating children, okay, every child nowadays has like a phone or a tablet. Instead of telling children, bring this tablet to okay, bring the tablet to school, bring the phone to school. We're going to teach you at a young age how to use it, what not to do, how to find information. Instead, we just go to school, see. Right, we just go to school, we go through the same process, come up, do common entrance, get in secondary school, do CXCs, you may see a PowerPoint every now and then, you may see a video embedded occasionally. And you get into university and there, some teachers may use online resources, some may not. And majority don't because at the end of the day, they've been doing the same thing for, I don't know, 20 years. And like, this is my personal experience. I'm at UWI now. And we still have to submit and print and physically submit paper assignments. And where I was studying before, I had not physically written anything in so long that my handwriting is illegible now. So when coming back here is a huge step back because most of the technology that's available is not used. It may be basic things like we have Moodle at UWI, but the most you see at Moodle at UWI is PDFs, a PowerPoint for the lecture, and that's it. There's no greater use of any of the resources. Say, for example, the community college, BTC. One, it doesn't have working Wi-Fi properly, and two, there's little to no use of any online resources. Students have to stand up and register, and that takes your entire day for a simple process that could be done online. It's like we have how do I put it? Yes, it's like Dr. Suda was saying, it's a culture. Our culture and mentality is still 20 years old, but we're adding on modern technology to try to band-aid it and make it seem current. When what we really need is an entire paradigm shift and not just adding on technology on top of the old system that is clearly out of date.
I actually want to pull up one of the points because I think one of the points you made actually ties back into what Dr. Bradshaw said with Wi-Fi that isn't working too well and so on. That I think that is key because even if the technology could be there and the infrastructure doesn't back that technology, where are we? I think someone from the crowd wanted to make a comment. Right there, floating mics. Or, yeah.
Hi, yes, Nadia Corbin-Bab, thanks for that.
Hey.
So I'm listening a lot to what you guys are saying, and I'm agreeing with quite a few things in terms of, I especially like what you said about having the old traditional style and just putting the Band-Aid on of, a new way of trying to teach, but adding on to it. So a couple of things I wanted to say, one of which was at one of the secondary schools that I'm very closely related to because of where my children go. They've been using a lot more of some levels of technology to help teach. So they're using the Google Classroom. So teachers are sending assignments, they're posting videos in the Google Classroom. They're encouraging chatting. The kids are submitting via email, etc. However, and they're even trying to use the Google Classroom. There's one teacher of mathematics who was saying, okay, this is how we're going to move today. We're going to use the Google Classroom today in class. It became a problem because the school says you're not to have a cell phone. So my son, who's not allowed to carry his cell phone, has to share with somebody who somehow managed to carry a cell phone magically. So he had to share. And so on the same time, if a teacher finds you with it, they'll confiscate it. So it's not just the first part is not just, having the teachers embracing the technology and the comments before about, you have a cell phone and how we use it to learn, but you still have to get across that administrative culture mentality of cell phones are bad, kids will, one of the panelists earlier this week had said something about administration thinking that the kids are going to use it to watch porn and do violence and spend all their days chatting or something really very far-fetched. So how do you deal with that and get around that whole concept? And then the second part is, if we are trying to talk about, introducing and integrating technology into the classroom, and the teachers are still wanting to use a chalk and board, why then do they still have the chalkboards?
Get rid of them.
If we
Okay,
are
if I could
providing
answer.
you with a means, if it's easier for me to do it, then I will do it. But if you provide the technology in place,
Okay, if I could answer
Sure.
a couple of questions.
Sure.
First of all, when a teacher uses technologies like Dropbox and other things, that's fantastic. The child is getting access to learning how to submit documents, videos, things like that. But it doesn't have to happen inside the school. Let me be very clear. You cannot put a price on a lovely blank board, a nice pen or a chalk, and getting on with it and deriving something. You cannot replace that experience with technology. What I'm talking about is accessing that technology from home. So we're not talking about we don't need the internet at school. So I'm not agreeing on that front. And then the other question you raised, I have managed to get into, I've got 16 teachers from 16 different schools creating videos on iPads. So that's proof that we have excellent teachers out there who are able and willing to use the technology. But as our friend said over here, it is a band-aid approach. We need a paradigm shift. We need all the schools agreeing that, okay, so we're going to teach on the board at school as we normally do, but we're going to come on a platform where we're going to embed these certain videos that we all agree upon, that we're going to contribute digital content to this platform, that we're going to share resources so that our children are going to be using that resource from home, and we're going to have a platform where there is tutor support for students from home. From school to school to school, to teacher to teacher. And that's exactly what I'm working on right now. I'm actually working on an app, which I'm going to demonstrate to the ministry, which will allow students to get access to a tutor completely anonymously. The teacher would be anonymous, the child would be anonymous, and would be secure and safe in the knowledge of getting access to that chemistry homework at 7 o'clock in the evening. But the point I'm trying to make is that instead of schools and individual teachers and these wonderful stars of teachers who are doing great things with technology, we need to pull them together and change at the paradigm shift across the whole of Barbados, so that they're all on the platform, we're all collaborating, we're all accessing the same sort of material from home instead of those one or two wonderful schools.
I think, David, you
Can
wanna
I
make a
offer
point?
another perspective?
Yeah, sure, Julian.
I'm sorry.
So in the UK, this is what's happening. You have students who have now leapfrogged the tech capability of teachers in schools. And what's happening is it's now, in their minds, making education redundant. And I would like Barbados not to fall into that trap. And let me give you an example. So there's a young man who is one of our students at Ultra Education. He's 14 years old. His name is Alex, and he has an e-commerce business. So what he does is he will source popular products, which are maybe trending at the moment, on Alibaba or AliExpress, which is like a Chinese version of Amazon. And he will then use Instagram influencers to advertise those products, which he will then put on his Shopify website. So he might pay an Instagram influencer 100 or 150 pounds, and they will now put a post from his shop of this trending product, and he will get hundreds of sales. And this young man, at the age of kind of 12 or 13, was generating thousands of pounds a month. At his peak, which was the beginning of this year, he was generating £30,000 a month. And this model I'm describing is called drop shipping. Many of you may have heard of it or come across it. Now, it's very difficult to explain to Alex why education is important, because as far as he's concerned, he has leapfrogged adults in terms of his ability to create a platform where he can sustain himself in a meaningful way. And he's learning new skills all the time, because everything I've just described requires him to understand geography, maths, history, English, numeracy, finance, marketing, psychology, sociology. There's a whole breadth of educational input that he's had to pick up himself, but he's done that because he couldn't gain that from school. Now, Alex is exemplary in that regard, but it's a trend that we have now in the UK. So what's happening is students are saying to themselves, well, if we're able to do that, why do we need to go to school? And the irony of it is that Alex is quite compliant. Alex still does well in school, etc., etc. But if you go to his Instagram, he will say, well, actually, the school isn't teaching me anything anymore. Because without, what we have to understand is that if you think about the digital ambassadors that are there at that conference now, they are digital natives. And if you're not careful, they will leapfrog the adults in their ability to apply technology so that they can create employment for themselves. I don't think that's happened yet. So I'm just issuing that as a challenge that we now have in the UK, but you don't need to have that. If you have the conversation now with students around not just the use of technology, but the application of technology in a way that can have a genuine impact on their lives and on their future careers.
Okay, Jin, thank you a lot for that insightful example. I think it shows, we have to be very careful, because when a student starts making money like that, you really will ask the question, why are you going to school when they can make that kind of money? So I think it's a point very well made. David, you wanted to say something?
I actually wanted to pose a question that somewhat follows on from that, which is in relation to our previous panel discussion. We had a conversation, and a parent mentioned the fact that at their school, they're using Google Classroom, so everything is now coming to the their child virtually, who use it via the app. And they, as a parent, don't feel empowered in terms of understanding how to control the use of the child's device, in terms of, how do I know they're doing homework? How do I know they're not playing games or on social media? So in that conversation around making sure that our digital native young people are not outstripping not just the teachers, but how do we bring the parents also into that conversation? I would pose it to the panel and to Julian to ask, what sort of steps do you think need to be taken?
That's a very good point, David, and thank you.
I'm not a teacher or educator, but this is something that when I was saying we need to have a whole paradigm shift. That's where it starts. The teachers and also parents need to be educated on the proper use of technology. I'm sure most parents don't know about all of these phones that you buy have parental controls built into the operating system. You can enable it, you can set the times where children can use it, you can set what they do, what they can't do on the tablets, phones, and laptops. Or the schools can issue the devices and then the same thing, apply the same controls. I'm sure most of you have work phones, and your work phones are, even if you don't know them, are monitored, and what you can and can't do is set at a time by your IT admin. And the same thing can be applied. What Willie was saying about my generation leapfrogging the adults is very true, because at the end of the day, we know the technology better than you do. And when you are trying to monitor us, we already know you can't do this. And it creates a feeling of web bothering. So even when I was in secondary school, sometimes felt web bothering with any of this, because I could learn that basic biology online. I could learn everything online. I could learn how much bales of sugar cane were sold back in 18 whenever online. By the end of the day, when we my generation are learning things, we have the attitude of, we can learn this in a classroom, or we can go online and learn it and not show up for class. So it needs to be a paradigm shift, and not just using the same curriculum from 1966 as a discounted GCE to continue educating when the entire world has shifted and changed. The random pieces of information aren't really relevant anymore, because anybody in 2 seconds can find that random piece of education. What we need is an entire change to our education system. Educate for the modern world and not the world of 20 years ago, where pieces of random information were still relevant and still got you a job. Something separate on little diversion. This is mostly for the educators in the room. In Barbados and the Caribbean, we have a very bad attitude towards people with learning disabilities and mental illness. And technology is one way that we could easily capture all of these children and people who easily fall through the cracks of our society. Is there any way that y'all have been using technology to try to address this? Because recently forgot the name of the school, Alma Paris, I think it was, closed down. And in Barbados, unless you have considerable resources, financial resources to get your children into one of the special needs schools like Lockerbie or anything like that, the likelihood of them being able to go through our education system is extremely low and they will fall through the cracks. I know this personally from a family member. So we are, like I said, using a band-aid. We have so many potential resources and solutions to problems, but because, like you said, the old mentality, we are just using them as a band-aid to overlay and to basically keep up appearances. We're embracing technology. We just, not to don't cry any of your efforts, but say, okay, we're embracing technology, but that's just using the old methods and adding a nice screen on it to make it look pretty.
Thank you so much, Joshua. I'll go to Dr. So I think he wants to jump in, and then we'll go over to the
Okay, so probably because I'm the oldest person here, I still love pen and paper. Let me give you an idea. I don't actually agree with what you said. Let me explain why. I love technology. If you come to see my lecture notes, I have videos embedded everywhere. I've got group discussions. I've got I take pictures of the board on which I write on. I have homework submission by online. You name it, I use it. I use anything and everything to technology. But then at the end of the day, what I insist upon is that students don't fall into a false sense of security by watching videos, by watching YouTube videos. They need to be able to write it down on a piece of paper and derive something. You cannot replace a blank piece of paper and a pen when you go through the process of trying to derive something on a blank piece of paper and a pen. So what I'm trying to say is when we need a paradigm shift, I'm not talking about along the lines you're talking about. I'm talking about you need the blend, you need the pen and the paper, you need that blackboard, you need that teacher to explain it slowly. But you also need the support that technology provides at home. And you need, most importantly, all the schools and all the teachers coming together with a common curriculum. So if you're teaching mathematics, you don't have one school teacher doing it a different way to another. We're all coming together and sharing best practices and on a platform where it works, where you know your child is getting the best of both worlds. At school, pen and paper on the board, let's get it done rock solid. Come home, get the support you need. That's the world I'm talking about. That's the shift I'm talking about.
And that is very, very key because, for example, the instances of peer-to-peer learning, right? If one student is learning it one way and another student is learning another way, one student can be saying, I write and you write, and you can't, create that culture of peer-to-peer learning and so on, which is very key and critical. So I think those points are very, very important, Dr. Soda. And Dr. Bradshaw, you want to say something?
I just want to say I agree with Dr. Soda. Yes, we agree. Yes, you have children in classrooms with varying abilities, various learning styles. As teachers, we have to cater to these learning styles. I wouldn't want us to go away from here thinking that technology is a panacea for all the problems we have within the school. All right? Now, while technology is good, we also recognize that it's bad. And I want to answer the second part of your question because it wasn't answered with regard to the fact that some teachers use the Google Classroom and they use all of these things, but there's a ban on cell phones. So how are your children supposed to use the cell phones in the classroom, where the teachers have the Google Class notes posted, if they have their cell phones? Now, I don't want to delve too deeply into the cell phone issue and the ban on cell phones, but what I can say is before any policy can be implemented, research must be done. And I know as quickly as we want to see the cell phones and the tablets and so on infused in all of the classrooms and everybody's using the same curriculum, I know we want to see all of that. But with all of the good also comes bad. And we must analyze and evaluate. We must look to see, is there a digital divide? We're talking about putting these notes on Google Classroom and doing this and doing that. But does everybody have a cell phone? Does everybody have access to a computer? How fair is it? Right? Just to put the notes on Google Classroom. You still have to use the chalkboard to do certain things, because at the end of the day, little Mary might have to go home and write something down in the book because she doesn't have access to the Google Classroom, right? So you have to look also at the actors involved, the leaders. Do they have the capacity? Do the teachers have the capacity? How much capacity do they have, if they do have the capacity? Right? So it's not as easy as saying, let's just put these things in the classroom. If a computer breaks, or do the children bring to school their cell phones and tablets, or would the ministry provide the cell phones and tablets? So we have to sit down and evaluate all of these things before we can just rush and put cell phones in the school, or rush and put tablets in the school. I also want to console you by telling you that the Ministry of Education is on the cusp of introducing new policies that would see the use of the technology within the classroom. But before that policy or those policies can be implemented, we have to ensure that we have covered all of our bases, legally, ethically, you have to look at everything before you can implement. So that's to answer the second part of your question.
Hi, can I make a comment?
Yeah, sure, Julian, yeah.
Sure. So I understand the concerns, but you'll also be familiar with the term analysis paralysis. And it seems like the concerns around cell phones, and it just sounds so as if cell phones are, such an evil, bad thing. It just feels like we're focusing on the wrong area here. And it seems like we're speaking from a place of fear and not productivity and not educational benefit and not innovation and not Smart Barbados. Fear is false expectations appearing real. None of this is true. We don't know whether any of these things that we're talking about are real. We don't know that. And again, I'll go back to my original point. By the time we finish the analysis, I'm just saying, because it's happened in the UK, it's happened in other places in the world, by the time we finish the analysis, the young people are going to leapfrog, and then we're going to have another problem. So there is a process in technology which is called sprints and iterations and agile. What it means is you can still get something done without having to work out the full length and breadth of the project. Anyone in technology in the room can attest to this. So and I'm suggesting that we take an agile approach to how we solve this problem. I'm not saying it's not a problem, but what I'm saying is we have to approach it in a lean way so that we can create some movement, because actually the only way you can test something is to do it. It's the only way you can get evidence. Research isn't enough, because you'll be researching something outside of your own paradigm, and there are other factors affecting the outcomes of the use of cell phones in other places.
Yeah,
so
Julian, yeah. Not to stop you though. I do take your point about applying the agile methodology to something like this, but we also have a small concern, and that Dr. Bradshaw raised as well, is also being considerate and inclusive as well. Because one key thing though that I want to mention personally is that it is fine to say we use the Google the Google platform and so on, the Google Classroom. But when you have a child who, when they goes home, and not sure if they're going to have internet, or when they go home, they're not sure if they have electricity and so on, by only using the Google platform, you have just disadvantaged and damaged a child's possible ability to interact and to learn, and that's disadvantaging, and that's something that we can't have. We still must be inclusive. So I take your point, but
moderator, that applies regardless though.
Yeah,
no one will ever be equal, even
the
to
transitionary period. So there'll be a transitionary period. No one's saying that overnight.
No, agreed.
But there'll be a transitionary period, and of course the access that young people have to technology, that's another challenge.
Yes, it is.
It is another challenge.
Joshua, you want to say something? Or?
two things. I disagree. One, if you said that we can't replace chalkboards and physical classrooms. For example, I was working and studying law last semester. I skipped like 2 or 3 entire classes. I never attended any of them, lectures, tutorials, anything at all. But I got through because I had lectures online and the materials were posted online. So I showed up for the exam and I got grades for all of my classes. So yes, we can replace tech chalkboards and pen and paper. It's not necessarily what is there, but it is the content of the lesson. And like you say, you have to combine different learning styles. Not every child learns from sitting down in front of a chalkboard and watching a lecture. I don't. If I sit down in a lecture, I'm going to fall asleep. Even if it's, no matter how funny or interesting it is, I will fall asleep. And furthermore, when you were saying that it will disadvantage some people, yes, but that is a fact of life. No matter what we do, even as it is now with pen, paper, and books and what's not, it still disadvantages people. Not everyone has equal access.
All right, Joshua, just want to hold you. We have a burning question or a burning point from the audience.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Yeah. All right, listen to the discussion here. I'll start first with the video thing there. And I share his views that people seem to believe that students, if you give them a cell phone, only danger could come out of it. And that's because I believe, and I'm talking after 36 years of education, I'm also in administration at a school in Trinidad and Tobago. And we have grand internet infrastructure and whatever else. And I'll talk about many of the issues that are raised here. I'll start with this person's concern first, this young lady here, who had indicated about the school and the administration, what the teachers want. There must be administrative support, full stop, okay? If you want to do something in the school, it must be a whole school approach. Not I want to do it, or this gentleman wants to do it, or she wants to do it. Must be a whole school support. Secondly, the digital divide. Our students, all the students have equal access. But if you have equal access at home, then the administration should see that there be a need and provide, maybe in the library. That's what we have in our libraries. We have tablets in the libraries for students to be able to access Google Classroom or Schoology or other LMS systems that teachers decide to use. So that's one thing. The other thing is that are teachers effectively using technology? And I raise this point because there are many teachers who believe they're going to replace the internet. There are many teachers who use, I have a PowerPoint presentation, but they show it up on a whiteboard or a projector or a wall or whatever it is, a screen, and you're seeing a ton load of notes on that. And that teacher is talking, and everybody in the class is reading. Is that an effective use of technology? Okay? Another thing is that we talk about the disadvantage in the classroom and so on. When I use technology, it's more like flipping the classroom. My students look at content at home, and when they come to my class, I'm on my feet, I'm walking around, I'm asking questions, and that is what you need a teacher for, to engage discussion. Just like what we're doing here in this room. We engage in discussion, okay? You need a teacher, and right away, you could actually, by asking questions, you now incorporate differentiated learning within your classroom. So within that one environment, the homework is basically done in class, and the learning takes place at home. Or wherever they can have access to the
Thank you so much. We actually do have to wrap up, so what I'm going to do is just
very quickly,
point,
wonderful points. That's exactly what I do. Let me tell you the mix that actually works for me. I have the notes full, beautifully written down on the website, on Moodle. I have videos I use an iPad, I record a difficult concept, I go through it handwritten and I derive everything, I capture the video, I embed it. I have photographs, I have embedded videos from YouTube and other sources. And then they watch these resources from home. And when they come into my classroom, I'm on the board with a pen and asking, okay, so you saw the videos which cover my notes. You saw the helpful videos. Now let's get on the board and let's talk about it from not level 0, but you're at now level 1 or level 2, and you're answering questions. So the lecture now slowly turns into a tutorial. And you can cover the core understanding without worrying about doing that diagram on the board. So technology is incredibly important. So is the board. So is access to the resources from home. So in all of my experience, and all this white hair or little hair, it's always a mix that works. It's never a one-stop solution.
Okay, so I'm sorry, but we are actually out of time. I really want to wrap up. I really want to thank the the panelists for such engaging discussion. Also the audience as well. I mean, I thought some really important and key points were brought out. Even though we are on different sides, and at the end of the day, we still seem to come together. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks. Yes, and Julian, thank you so much for your participation as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks.